tonight on Game Plan.
We've won the last two. I feel like we're an ascending team who's continuing to play better. But this will be a great test for us because I think that the Lions are a very good football team.
The Saints are back from the bye and back in the Dome with a familiar foe coming to town.
Stafford going to throw and an easy touchdown.
We're breaking down the matchup, Ryan Ramczyk's impressive start to his career, and the Saints' decision to part ways with Adrian Peterson. It's all on Game Plan, starting right now.
From Fox 8 Sports, this is Game Plan. Sponsored by your Southern Quality Ford dealer, built Ford tough. And the 2017 Nissan Titan, with America's best bumper-to-bumper limited truck warranty, Nissan Titan. Take on any job.
Refreshed and recharged, the Saints are ready to roll into the second quarter of their season, fresh off a bye week. Welcome to Game Plan. With Juan Kincaid, I'm Sean Pazan.
It's a bye week that many Saints players wish could have come a bit later in the season because they went into with a 2-game win streak. But now that it's behind them, it's on to the next one. Detroit and the Dome on Sunday with a chance to get that record above 500 for the first time since 2013.
I'm not thinking about over 500 or anything like that. You know, it's the next game, but it's a very important game. It would be a very important win, I think, just in our maturation process and for our season. Well, you say home field advantage. I mean, it's listen. We need to play better. We need to play better at home. We haven't. Yeah, I don't know what the exact record is over the last 2.5 years, but I know that there was a time when I think teams dreaded coming and playing in the Dome, and there's no reason why it can't be like that again.
As for the Lions, they've had the Saints' number over the last few years with 3 straight victories against the Black and Gold. It's been tough.
No doubt about that. The Saints will do all they can to avoid a 4th straight loss to them, but playing this team has never been easy, and once again, the Saints are expecting a battle inside the Dome on Sunday. For the Saints, stopping the Lions begins with stopping the highest-paid player in the NFL, quarterback Matt Stafford, who's shown despite not being 100%. He's one of the toughest signal callers in the NFL and has only thrown 1 interception all season.
He's a great quarterback. I know he kind of reminds me, the little things he do, he kind of reminds me of Favre a little bit. He can throw on a run and he can kill you. He can kill you a lot. So, I mean, he's a good quarterback. And he get the ball to open receivers downfield.
Bottom line is he's a great player. I know this. You go into a game against a team like this, a quarterback like that, you know that the game's never over. You could be up by 3 touchdowns with 3 minutes left, and you know that they got a chance because they got a guy like that throwing the ball. You know, he can change the game very quickly. He's that type of a playmaker, and he's got that type of talent and competitive nature. So that's what you always know when you go up against a guy like this.
His main target is Golden Tate, who always seems to play his best when the Saints are his opponent.
He's kind of a little shifty dude, little wiggle, you know. He can kill you so much in the slot outside. We just got to play him.
The Saints offense will have to deal with a Detroit defense that may only be ranked 18th in the NFL, but has a knack for big plays.
In the air, it's intercepted. It's another Lions interception.
In 5 games, they've already accumulated 11 takeaways and 13 sacks. Their +8 turnover margin is 2nd in the NFL, which will be an interesting dynamic Sunday, as the Saints have yet to turn the ball over this season.
You still dial up the plays, you still play aggressive, you still take shots when you can, but also I think it's just understanding when it's okay to take a chance, and then maybe when it's okay just to make sure that the ball stays in your hands, you know. So listen, you can't paralyze yourself, but I think it's just smart football.
Both teams can certainly use a victory to maintain ground in their respective divisions. The Lions are a game behind the Green Bay Packers in the NFC North. At 2-2, the Saints remain a game and a half behind the division-leading Carolina Panthers. It's a big game for both, which means the stakes, as usual, will be high.
This will be a great test for us because I think that the Lions are a very good football team, and certainly I'd say they probably have some confidence, coming in, knowing that they beat us the last 3 times, but just we got to put together our best plan in order to beat them.
The last time the Saints beat the Lions was back in January of 2012. You remember that game? They beat them in the first round of the playoffs.
And what a shootout that was. 73 points combined, two teams. Saints get the victory in that. And with that, the same quarterbacks leading their respective teams. We could be in for another high-scoring affair on Sunday. The last two times the Lions played in the Dome, they put up 28 and 35 points respectively and came away with a pair of wins. In many ways, the Saints and Lions offenses mirror one another. Pro Bowl quarterbacks with a few weapons scattered around them to give opposing defenses a headache. Also, Detroit's used to playing in a loud dome, so playing in the Superdome lately hasn't fazed them at all.
It's a difficult place to play. It really is. That's as loud a stadium as you play in the NFL, a hostile environment, but a whole lot of fun to go out there and play. I think we just played well as a team. Last year our defense played extremely well, got 3 turnovers, I think. And, on offense, played good enough. We didn't put the ball in the end zone enough times, but we moved the ball up and down the field well.
It hasn't been that big of a challenge. There's a reason why they've beaten the Saints 3 straight times.
So is it fair to say Matt Stafford is key to either a Lions win or a Lions loss? Give it to me. What is that?
It's the snake, baby.
All right.
The head of the snake. Everything goes through Matt Stafford on offense, and there's a reason why he broke the bank this year with the new contract. The Saints have to do to him what Carolina did a week ago. They got to get in his face. They got to sack him, put him on the ground, give him pressure. If they can do that, they'll win this game.
Maybe give him some sound effects. Who knows? Still to come on Game Plan, rookie tackle Ryan Ramczyk hasn't just been reliable, he's also been versatile. Up next, what the film says about the first-rounder's ultra-quick learning curve.
Fazan's Film Breakdown is sponsored by the 2017 Nissan Titan. From Fox 8 Sports, you're watching Game Plan. Sponsored by your Southern Quality Ford dealer, built Ford tough. And the 2017 Nissan Titan, with America's best bumper-to-bumper limited truck warranty, Nissan Titan. Take on any job.
Through the first 4 games of the season, injuries have forced a game of musical chairs along the Saints offensive line, but despite all the shifting and moving around, they've been able to remain productive.
Juan, it is a testament to the group as a whole, but it can't be understated that what's helped them avoid disaster is the quick learning of first-round pick Ryan Ramczyk, who has officially found his comfort zone. Ryan Ramczyk may only be 4 games into his NFL career, but one thing we know he's earned is trust from the coaching staff. How do we know? Well, the team is not afraid to leave him one-on-one with no help against speed edge pass rushers on Drew Brees' blind side. It happened several times against the Dolphins, and several times Ramczyk came through. Lined up mostly against Andre Branch, Ramczyk didn't allow Branch to get close to Brees and even brought him to the ground on multiple occasions. In the third quarter, Ramczyk displayed his athleticism on a perfectly executed combo block. On the snap, he pushed Branch up the field past Alvin Kamara, then got out in front of the play to block linebacker Lawrence Timmons, springing Kamara for a 12-yard gain. When he flipped to the right side when Zach Strief went down, the Saints were trying to kill clock by playing with the lead. Thus, Ramczyk immediately showed his power on running plays. On the very first play, he drove Timmons again completely out of the play on a Mark Ingram run. And on the game's final touchdown, once again, Ramczyk was able to get to the second level to give a key block on Kiko Alonso. And with the likely return of Teron Armstead this week, Ryan Ramczyk will likely be on that right side for the foreseeable future. Which, when the Saints decided to draft him, that was their plan all along. No doubt. In the future. A crowded backfield, meanwhile, combined with a better opportunity for the player, is why Adrian Peterson was traded to the Cardinals on Tuesday. Sean Payton said as much on Wednesday, citing that the deal just made common sense. Payton recognized that the Cardinals needed a primary running back with usual starter David Johnson out, and the Saints had too many mouths to feed at that position. So Payton said the team had to strike while the iron was hot, and both sides are better off because they did.
One of the challenges, obviously, when you have the depth we had, is having enough touches for all these guys. And both Mark and Alvin have been playing well. I think, look, Adrian had a good training camp, and yet, in our league, you have free agency, then you have the NFL draft. Unlike basketball, where it's the other way around. And we drafted and ended up, finding a good young prospect who's played well. I think this was a win-win in regards to, I think Adrian and I have talked a ton each week. You know, we'll spend time just up here in the office talking about our system, just different things, his role, and our relationship, I would say, has been fantastic. And it was an opportunity really where he was going to obviously get somewhere and be featured more. And I'm happy that opportunity's come up and we were able to make a trade.
It was just getting more and more difficult to get Adrian Peterson on the field and involved in the offense. It's only one football, and 3 guys wanted to tote it. And the number of snaps in the first 4 games reminded us of the pecking order. Ingram has the most touches and yards, Kamara right behind him, and Peterson didn't even have half. So now he heads to Arizona, where he'll get more touches because they've got a depleted backfield with starter David Johnson nursing an injury, Sean.
And he's going to be missed in the Saints locker room. Guys like Mark Ingram and Kenny Vaccaro expressed happiness for Peterson getting a new opportunity, saying he still has some juice left in the tank. And I'll tell you this, Juan, he still certainly looks the part. Still to come. And just like that, he was gone. The 4 games in New Orleans, Adrian Peterson is off to Arizona. Up next, Josh Katzenstein of NOLA.com and SaintsGamePlan joins us to discuss how this trade will impact the Saints offense.
From Fox 8 Sports, you're watching Game Plan. Sponsored by your Southern Quality Ford dealer, built Ford tough. And the 2017 Nissan Titan, with America's best bumper-to-bumper limited truck warranty, Nissan Titan. Take on any job.
Always nice to have with us Josh Katzenstein from NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. What do you make of the whole Adrian Peterson to Arizona thing?
I mean, I think you have to call it a win for the Saints, right? I mean, this is a guy that wasn't really helping the offense very much. He played in 4 games. He played 44 total snaps. In the last one against the Dolphins, he only gained 4 yards on his 4 carries. And I think that, you know, the issue with Peterson was the signing him in the first place. But once they cross that bridge, I mean, you have to try to get something of value for him. And obviously a conditional 6th-round pick. We don't know the conditions, but that's more than they would have gotten if they just kept him as their 3rd-string back, waiting for an injury for him to have his opportunities. So I think you have to call it a win for the Saints. I mean, he might, you know, blow up and have a good, you know, season for the Cardinals just because they'll have the opportunity, but I don't think you're going to see him do anything that Mark Ingram or Alvin Kamara aren't doing right now.
Yeah. Alvin Kamara is key. His development was much faster than the organization had anticipated, not just as a guy that grasped the offense, but as a more complete back. And it felt like Adrian Peterson was getting forced in, jammed into an offense that he didn't necessarily fit into. He may go on to Arizona and have a lot of carries, have a lot of success. I doubt it, but that may happen. But the Saints, I can guarantee you, will go on and will not skip a beat without Adrian Peterson. This is a good deal for the Saints. To me, it's an easy call. And you also avoid the storyline from here on out. Okay, is this the week he gets more carries? Is this the week he gets more carries? So I think overall, easy call for the Saints.
And he stops wondering that as well. So this season is always broken out into 4 quarters. We'll have to go into the all-important second quarter, 4 games, maybe the most important quarter of the season.
Absolutely. I think this is, other than the first quarter, now you move into the second quarter. You don't want to lose this momentum here. And you got yourself back up to 500. You avoided that early season hole, but you don't want to jump right back into another one. So I hope this team is not relaxing right now, because I think now is the time to really press forward, because you have 2 very tough opponents, Detroit and, of course, Green Bay. So these next 4 games are going to be huge, because if you can get to 3-3 and then maybe to 5-3 at the halfway mark, then you'd be great. But if you're at 4-4 again, you're no different than what you were the last 3 years during the season. So I think this quarter right here is going to be huge and telling, kind of a telltale sign of where the rest of the season is going to go.
It is nice to break it down to quarters, but I think that ultimately at the end of the season, we're going to look back and say that these were the 2 most important games of the season, because you look at the opponents, and I think this is a great litmus test for the Saints team, because we don't know how good they are. I mean, they were so bad in those first 2 games, and then they caught a Carolina team that I think just wasn't ready for the Saints. I mean, they'd won 2 games against some pretty bad opponents.
They had lost a couple of their big players.
Yeah, right, and they were hurt, and so the Saints just really took advantage. The Dolphins are one of the worst teams in the NFL. There's no 2 ways around that. I think, they barely beat the Titans, you know, without Marcus Mariota. They lost to the Jets. So I think we don't know exactly how good the Saints are, but we do know that the Lions are a good team. They made the playoffs last year. They've had the Saints number. And then we know the Packers are probably a great team. So if the Saints can just go 1-1 in these 2 games, I think you have to feel pretty confident moving forward because the easiest slate, on the schedule is coming up.
No doubt. Willie Snead and Teron Armstead, they benefit from the bye week being early because looks like we might get both of those players back. Between Snead and Armstead, which is the most important returning player?
So I'm going to be the contrarian here. I know everyone's going to say Armstead, and look, I totally respect that left tackle is a premium position, maybe the most important position in the NFL behind quarterback. But I just think with what we've seen from the Saints offense, they've missed Willie Snead more than they've missed Teron Armstead because you look, I've used this stat a lot in my stories. They go 8 for 23 on 3rd downs in the first 2 games, and that was a key reason why the offense just wasn't living up to expectations. You bring in Willie Snead, he's probably your best 3rd down target because he's got that synergy with Breeze. He's I'd say he's probably Breeze's most trusted target. Yeah. I mean, Michael Thomas is better, but I think Snead and him are just on the same wavelength all the time. And then I think you look at the offensive line, they've done fine without Armstead. Obviously, Pete is not a great left tackle, and then, you take a hit at left guard when you bring in Calamete instead of Pete. But I just think that, the offensive line will be slightly better, and that, will be critically important because any improvement there is huge. I just think that Snead has been a real missing piece so far.
Look, I think the Saints have always been able to they've missed Snead. There's no doubt about it, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if he has a great game on Sunday against the Lions. But to me, it's got to be Teron Armstead. Having him back, and if he's 100% healthy, allows you to keep Andrus Peat at that left guard spot, which that's his natural fit. They tried different positions. Yeah. That's where he fits. He's an adequate left tackle. He's a better left guard, and it's obviously better to have him at left guard and Teron Armstead, a fully healthy Pro Bowl Teron Armstead at left tackle. That's dominant. And on the right side, Ramczyk has really held his own, as we saw in the film, and then Larry Warford has been a very good signing. And also, Max Unger is rock solid in the middle. I think this is the difference between a good offensive line and a dominant offensive line. And I think that works wonders regardless of the skill position players you have for this offense right now.
We're going to finish up with this because the Lions, over the last 3 times they've played, they've owned the Saints. They've won this game. They've won twice here in the Dome. The Saints understand the challenges in front of them.
Yeah, and it's
better.
It's one of those things. Detroit has not really been, you know them well, they haven't really been a dominant team. They just, for whatever reason, match up well against the Saints and have had their number. 2 players, Golden Tate and Glover Quinn. They always seem to have big games against the Saints. When Drew Brees throws an interception, sort of like Brent Grimes back in the day, for whatever reason, he always seems to have his hands on the ball when Drew Brees is throwing it. So I think they're well aware of it. And I think, look, they got to put a stop to it. It's 3 in a row. Yeah. Can't make it 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think Glover Quinn is a guy that a lot of people probably don't know that much about, but he's one of the best safeties in the league, and those are the guys that Drew Brees has struggled with. You look at, anytime they play Seattle, it seems like Earl Thomas is, making plays all over the field, and Golden Tate, for whatever reason, the Saints just can't tackle him once he gets the ball in his hands. But the Saints definitely know how important this game is, and they know that they've struggled against the Lions, because when we talked to Sean Payton on Wednesday, I asked him, I was like, is there any commonality with the 3 games that you've lost in a row? And Payton was ready for the question. He just listed off all these stats. He's like, 3rd downs, takeaways, rushing yards, kept going, quarterback hits, hurries, sacks. The Lions led all the categories, and most by a significant margin. So the Saints know that they have to be better across the board to beat this Lions team.
I'm going to borrow something from this man. He told us before the show, Saints have never lost 4 in a row to the Lions. We're going to hold him to that. Hey. Josh Katzenstein from NOAA.com and the Times picking you. Thanks a lot again.
Thank you, but don't hold that against me.
In a game full of playmakers, how do you decide the fantasy football starters? Chris Hagan handicaps the field. Next.
Keys to the Game is sponsored by your Southern Quality Ford dealer. From Fox 8 Sports, you're watching Game Plan. Sponsored by your Southern Quality Ford dealer, built Ford tough. And the 2017 Nissan Titan, with America's best bumper-to-bumper limited truck warranty, Nissan Titan. Take on any job.
Keys to the game now. Sunday will be a battle of the opportunistic as the Saints and Lions have 2 of the best turnover margins in the entire NFL. The Lions have played 1 more game, but their +8 margin is good enough for 2nd in the league, while the Saints are +4, good for 4th. Perhaps most notable is that the Black and Gold are just the 3rd team since 1933, right before Jim Henderson was born, with 0 turnovers in the first 4 games of the season. And Sunday's game won't just impact the NFC standings, it will also have an effect on fantasy football rosters.
There are playmakers everywhere.
Yep.
And I do mean everywhere. Chris Hagan has his eye on a few players that could be poised for a big game inside the Dome. Here's this week's Extra Point.
As we enter week 6, we have another fantasy football-rich game between the Saints and Lions. The key is to make the right picks and not overthink yourself out of a big day. The first guy on my radar is Lions receiver Golden Tate. He has been a Saints killer every time he's gone up against the black and gold with Detroit. In 3 games, he's totaled 24 receptions for 344 yards and 5 touchdowns. Now, while I do think Tate is worth the start, temper those expectations if he's matched up with lockdown corner Marshawn Lattimore. In fact, I actually think Marvin Jones Jr. is setting up to have a decent day if he draws a matchup with any corner besides Lattimore. Also with Detroit, I like tight end Eric Ebron. Those who started him last week against the Panthers, where he had just 1 catch for 6 yards, may not agree. But the Saints historically haven't been the best at covering tight ends, and judging by Ebron's Twitter response to angry fans, he is pretty motivated. For the Saints, it's all about their running backs. The way they've continued to feed Alvin Kamara, he's become a must-start, especially in PPR leagues, but even in standard leagues as well. Courtesy of Sean Fazan's film study, you can see just how many positions the Saints use their jack-of-all-trades, and Kamara should only be more productive as the year continues. As for the rest of the backfield, with Adrian Peterson on the way out, that's 7 or 8 more snaps and possible touches headed Mark Ingram's way. And should the black and gold continue to play with the lead like they did in their last 2 wins against Carolina and Miami, Ingram could have some big days. That said, though, with the Cardinals acquiring the veteran Peterson, he should be a top waiver wire priority if available. Their ground game has been non-existent since David Johnson went down in week 1, and Peterson, who's better with volume, should give them what they need as long as he's healthy. At receiver, if Willie Snead is good to go, I like him just as much as Michael Thomas. Lions corner Darius Slay has earned the name Big Play Slay for a reason and will make things tough on Thomas. Snead should benefit in his season debut. Of course, rarely do I delve into the kicking game, but Will Lutz and Matt Prater are among my favorites, and if either is available, specifically Lutz after a bye week, go ahead and make that move. Giving you a leg up on the fantasy football competition, I'm Chris Hagan for Game Plan.
Our coverage certainly doesn't stop here. Lots more on Fox 8 News Friday and Saturday, and then Sunday, it's the game day routine you know and love. Fox 8 Live Tailgate begins the day full of football on our air, including the Saints kicking off at noon. Our reports begin on Fox 8 News at 9, leading up to the final play at 10:30.
And be sure to tune in for Fox 8 Football Friday at 10:35 as Chris Hagan and I take you around the state for all the great prep action here in Louisiana. Until then, thank you for watching Game Plan. Thanks to everyone here at Fox 8 for their contributions. Our next newscast is bright and early, 4:30 in the morning. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
From Fox 8 Sports, this has been Game Plan. Sponsored by your Southern Quality Ford dealer, built Ford tough. And the 2017 Nissan Titan with America's best bumper-to-bumper limited truck warranty, Nissan Titan. Take on any job.